Welcome back. This is the second of 3 videos about graphics for technical communication. Your textbook says that there are 4 types of graphics: objects, numbers, concepts, and words. Well, words aren't usually considered as graphics, but they are made up of letter shapes, or glyphs, that appear on paper or on screen, so they technically count. But they're not what we usually think about when we say graphics. Instead, when we say words, let's focus on the idea that graphics can have embedded words, and those words are important parts of graphics. For this video lecture, I will focus on talking about objects. I'll talk about numbers in the next lesson, since objects and numbers are the most common graphics in technical writing. First, though, I'll quickly talk about graphics that communicate concepts. As we've said before, whenever you try to communicate ideas, graphics are helpful because graphics are intuitive to our brains. We can communicate even intangible concepts by graphics. For example, here's a conceptual graphic that communicates the PDCA cycle. We can explain this cycle using text too, but we don't need to because this single graphic communicates a lot. By just glancing at this graphic, we can immediately understand it's a cyclical process that repeats without end. We can jump in anywhere we like, probably at P because it's the PDCA cycle, but in any case, there are 4 concepts that we will repeat over and over, and we'll end up with a continually improved product or procedure, or what have you. As you can see, graphics help us to communicate ideas in a quick and intuitive way. As we've said this before, but again, whenever you can, try to use graphics in your technical writing. Now, let's go back to the main point of this lesson, objects. This type of graphic, as the name obviously communicates, depicts concrete objects. These things may be tools, plants, whatever. The point is, the object is tangible. You can reach out and touch it. We deal with a lot of tangible objects in technical communication, so use this type of graphic all the time. There are many different styles of graphics that we can use, but in this particular video, we'll focus on 2, drawings and photos. This is an example of an object graphic. It describes parts of a meat grinder. Just by looking at this simple 2-dimensional line drawing, we know what each part looks like and how those parts fit together. This is another example of an object graphic. This time, it's a perspective drawing in what's called an exploded view, but it works much the same way as the previous graphic of the meat grinder. The graphic shows the parts, you can see what each part looks like, and in what order the parts need to be layered. Whenever we depict objects, we always need to think, does the graphic need to be simple or detailed? Back to the clock parts. This is a pretty simple drawing. It describes the object precisely and accurately, but the graphic consists only of a colored background, white space, and black lines. Now, how about this? Although the photo shows a lot more detail, don't you think it's harder to get the idea of how to assemble the clock? The point is this: just giving more details does not necessarily add to our audience's understanding. In fact, giving too many details often makes it harder to understand the information. Now, how about this? This is not bad. It's a photo, but it's pretty clean and simple. We can see each screw clearly, which is helpful. We can also see their actual sizes compared to each other, which is very helpful. At the same time, we could do the same thing by making a simple line drawing like the example of the clock. We need to consider the kind of object we're showing and decide what is the best way to communicate information about it. How about this example? It's very hard to see the details of the hard disk, especially at the bottom where the cables plug in, isn't it? Photos capture objects as they are, but photos are not necessarily the best method to show details. How about this? In this image of a hard disk, you get the sense of how the bottom part looks, right? Simple drawings, such as this, often help us to see more details than photos. Photos are certainly accurate since they depict objects as they are. Yet, drawings help us to clarify details and emphasize details we want to show to our readers. How about this one? Photos are usually good when we want to show a situation or the condition of things. This single photo is from an event, and it shows a lot about what the event was like. This is what the room looked like. This is what kind of people were there. If we use drawings, we cannot show this real feel of the situation. Thus, for reports, photos are usually better than drawings because we want to know the reality of the situation. To summarize, in general, when we give instructions or describe objects, simple line drawings are good choices. As you'll recall, in the graphics of the meat grinder or the clock, simple drawings help us to focus on important information without being distracted by irrelevant details. If you want to describe an object, like in the example of the hard disk, it's usually a good idea to have a simple drawing with some key details. In the case of the hard disk, the drawing was more detailed than the drawings of the meat grinder or the clock, but in each of these cases, you still get the accurate idea of how the object is structured. For reports, photos are usually good media because you can depict the reality of the thing or place. Whenever you decide how to depict some particular object, you need to answer two questions. What is the key information? What is the best way to communicate that information? Do you want people to know how to assemble the clock? Or do you want people to know the structure of the hard drive? Or do you want to report how an event went? Think about, what do you want to communicate? Then, what is the best way to communicate it? This is the end of the second video about graphics in technical communication.